Yep, exactly, Devin. So the only thing that's preventing somebody from putting a date for a birthday at some point in the future in our date field is we have to check that on the client side, or do, as Devin said, do some type of sanitation. And once something is stored in your database, like it's going to be there practically forever. So you want to make sure everything is sanitized, not necessarily sanitized, but anything that you don't want to go into your database to not actually go into your database. So that includes implementing what we call validators. So we want to do a validation of what a user is inputting into that field before it actually gets saved. Because once it's saved, it's in there. So that's what we're going to be talking about today and implementing today's Django validators or Django validations. So to get started, I'm going to make a directory called Django validations. Or yeah, that works. Whoop.
Did you hit record yet?
Did I? Yes. Thank you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a Django project from scratch, a Django app. I'm going to create some models, and I'm going to create a couple of validators from scratch because there is a specific way to do this. So what's the first thing I should do to create a Django project? We're looking up here.
Virtual environment.
Yep. Let's go ahead and create our virtual environment. So clear Python -make venv virtual environment. I'm going to list everything out. I'm just going to actually open this all up in the same window. There we go. So we've got our virtual environment. Now we need to actually activate our virtual environment, go into it. So source venv bin activate. So now we're in our virtual environment. So now I want to create, or now I need to install Django. All right, so hopefully this is working because Django 4.0. So, and if I want to see what's installed in my virtual environment, I can do pip list. And now you can see I've got Django installed in there. All right. So let's say we're going to be creating a Twitter clone. And I want to create a Django project called Twitter project or whatever. So the next thing I want to do is do Django-admin start project followed by the project name. So I'm going to do Django space admin start project, all one word, Twitter -project. Now, if I run that, I get command error, Twitter -project is not a valid project name. Make sure the name is a valid identifier. So you can only name your Django projects, can only include certain characters, and dashes isn't one of them. So I'm just going to do Django admin start project Twitter _project. All right, so I just created a Twitter project. But I think I mentioned before that I don't like how, I created this parent directory, and then I've got my Django project, and then I've got the manage.py file. I don't like that. It's just a personal preference. I don't like having to go down multiple levels. I want everything to be on this inside of just this Django validations directory. So I can do the same thing, Django admin start project Twitter -project space period. And now watch what this looks like. So now I've got the manage.py file here, and then right here is inside of this Twitter project directory is where my settings.py file is. So there isn't a parent Twitter underscore project directory. And that's okay that my virtual environment's on this same level too. That's totally okay. Yeah. Anyway, any questions about starting a project? All right. So I created a Django project. Now I need to create a Django app. So I'm going to call this Python manage.py start app. So Python manage.py start at, I'm creating a new app, and I'm going to just call it Twitter. So if I do that, now I've got my Twitter app up here. So I've got my Twitter project, and you can tell that it's the project directory. It's because it's got the settings.py file on it in it. And then the Twitter directory is my app because it's got that migration script. It's got the models. It's got this views file, test, and all that. Any questions so far?
You said earlier that every Django project has to have at least one app. So that would be like the index. It's gonna have to have somewhere to start. Something like that.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. But like you can still start a Django project, and well, I've never tried to actually run the server on it. Django. But yeah, essentially you'll always have a Django app, at least one. All right. So again, we're just going to be working on the models directory typically, and we're actually going to talk about the tests as well. We're going to write some tests. But in our models directory, or our models folder, we're going to create our model for our Twitter application. So what's one thing every Twitter account, what is it like? What do I need if I wanted to create a Twitter? What's the main thing I would need? What model would I need?
Email password.
So those are fields I'll need on the model. But what like an account or a user? So yeah, so a user, an account. Django already has a built-in user model, but I can always override that. So I'm just going to create a user model. Class user, because you can, yeah. So I'm going to create a class user. Each class, each model will inherit from the models.model class. So I created a user class or user model. And I heard some people say like email. So I'll actually do first name equals models.char field. The char field will always need a max length. So I always have to put a max length, and char field will always have a max length, not always have a max length, but will have a max length of 255 unless otherwise specified, or I'm sorry, the max length of a char field could only be 255. You can't go over 255 characters. If you want something that's over 255 characters, you would have to use a text field, similar to SQL. So max length, I can do 255 there. I'll do last name just to keep things simple. I heard email. So I heard email. Should email be a char field?
Is there a specific email field?
There's a specific email field.
All right. So yeah, so like Django email. Django email field. Looks like I searched that a long time ago. Not geeks. Nope. I want to use the Django docs. All right. So we look here. Okay, field types. We have auto. So we have char field. Someone said, okay, it looks like we have an email field. So what does the email field do? The email field is literally just a char field that checks the value is a valid email address using an email validator. So if If I don't know what an email validator is, I can look up here. Email validator. It says parameters, doesn't look like we need any. So allow list of email domains. By default, a regular expression is used to validate whatever appears after the @ sign. However, if that string appears in the allow list, this validation is bypassed. If not, the allow list is localhost, blah, blah, blah. So there's a built-in email validator that checks using regular expressions, that checks whatever comes after the @ symbol. So it's essentially ensures that there's an @ symbol. And I think there needs to be at least 2 characters after that symbol for this email validator to work. So it's literally just a char field with the email validator applied to it. All right, so I'll do email. Was it email field? Email field. I don't think I need anything in there. Or I think does it have a max length? Oh yeah, so max length 255, 254. I'll just say 100. All right. What other, how old do you have to be on Twitter?
Probably 13.
13.
Over, yeah.
So I'm going to create a model, an age field. So models dot, and it's going to be an integer field. And I'm just going to leave it as so right now. We'll apply a validator to that later. Also, I think, I don't know, was it last year or something? Twitter, they were talking about like having like a paid user to get the little blue check mark or something like that. So our Twitter clone is going to have, we're going to have a free accounts and also paid accounts. So it'll be like a free tier and a paid tier. So I'm going to do a max length because I only want this account type. I want it to say free or paid as like a thing. So the only thing that could be in this account type will be a char field that literally has free or paid. So free or paid, they're both 4 characters long, which are good. All right. So that's good for right now. And I'll actually apply some items to that later, but let's check this out. So after I've got my user model done, I want to apply this user model to a database. Should we use the built-in SQL database or should we create a Postgres database?
Postgres.
All right. So I'm going to create a DB, create DB. I'm just going to call it Twitter. So PSQL Twitter. Great. I've got my Twitter database. So now what do I need to do? And I skipped a step. After I created my Twitter app, your first thing you should always do is go back to the settings.py file and add your app to your settings.py file. So inside my Twitter project, inside my settings, I come down here to installed apps. Django already has these installed apps built into it, but I'm going to also add my Twitter app to it, like so. Now I want to use a Postgres database. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to databases. And instead of using the built-in SQLite database, so it's using a SQLite database engine, and it's just the SQLite file at the base directory. But I'm going to use a PostgreSQL database. And the name of that database, what did I name it? Twitter, is going to be Twitter, like so. So I'm using a Postgres database, and the name of that database is Twitter. All right. So if I come back here, I'm back in my Twitter app inside my migrations directory. So now I actually want to apply this user model to the Twitter Postgres database. So if I look down here, so I created my user model. Now I need to create a migration script. So I need to do Python manage.py, make migrations, followed by the app name, which is optional. So Python manage.py, make migrations, one word. And my app name is Twitter. I don't have to include that, but I'm just going to include it because I only want to apply these migrations or create this migration script. So what questions do you have about that?
Now, if you don't include Twitter, does that just it just migrates all of them?
So right
All your
now
apps?
it's not migrating everything, but I'm making the migrations to everything. But since if I do this, it's not going to change because there's only one app and this is the only user model that I'm creating a migration script for. All the other migration scripts that exist for these apps already exist. So whether the first time I do this, if I do it this way or type in Twitter, it's going to be the same output. But yeah, otherwise, if you had other apps, it would make the migrations. Uh-oh, what happened? Uh-oh, what did I forget? No module name Psychod PG2.
And install your requirements.
Yep. But I don't have a requirements file directory because I created this from scratch. But if I'm using a Postgres database, I need to use psychopg2 or psychopg2. So if I do pip list, I don't have psychopg2 in here. So I'm going to have to do pip install psychopg2. And this is only if you're using a Postgres database. If you're using the built-in SQLite database, you do not have to install psychopg2. So I did that. So let's actually run that again. Uh-oh. Char field. Did I spell it wrong? Django database models has no.
One of them's not camel cased. Line 9's not camel cased.
Thank you. So if I look down here, it says account type. There we go.
Why did we choose a Postgres database? What advantage does it have for our app that we're building here?
As opposed to the built-in one?
Yes.
Really no difference. It's really just to get used to creating a Postgres database and working with it. That's really the only thing I'm doing right now. So let's go here. Runtime. This is interesting. Do I not have anyway, so I've got, let's see if this might run runtime warning. Just want to check something. But before I tackle this, it says migrations for the Twitter app. Twitter created this migrations initial .py script, and it says create model user. So that's what it's doing. So if I look at this initial.py file, this code, I really don't know what it means. Essentially, this is just a script that Django made. So when I actually run this script or migrate, this script will actually create that database or the user model into the Twitter database. So it looks like migrations, you can read through it, but never touch this file. So once I created the migrations, so I created that initial.py file. Now I can run Python manage.py migrate, and hopefully it works. Python manage.py migrate. And I'm going to migrate just the Twitter app scripts. All right, why isn't this working? Oh, what the hell?
When you added
Uh,
Twitter to the settings.py, well, the thing you replaced had like a slash base file in the path. Do you need anything there for the name?
No, but I'm doing
Okay.
the database you made had 3 T's instead of 2.
That's awesome. That's PSQL Twitter. Ah, that's why. So I just needed to add another Twitter to that, my database. So if I run Python manage.py, migrate Twitter, and the Twitter, I'm migrating not the Twitter database, I'm migrating the Twitter app. I probably should have called that database something different. Actually, let's actually drop the DB, drop DB, Twitter, drop. All right, and I'm going to create a new database. I'm going to call it like Twitter app. So create a new Twitter app. So the name of that database is Twitter app. Great. Now I can do Python manage.py, the Twitter Django app. Python manage.py, migrate Twitter. Great. There we go. So what it did was apply all the migrations for the Twitter app, which was that initial .py file you can see right there. And now I can do PSQL Twitter app, and I can look at \D. You can see I've got that Twitter user. So the way it names your models is the name of your app, your Django app, followed by the model name. So Twitter user. And you can look at, you want to use Postico. Where to the Twitter app? So Twitter app. You can see we've got the Twitter user, we've got the ID, first name, last name, email, age, and account type. Any questions on just getting everything set up? I know there's like a bunch of little spelling errors that I ran into. All right.
If you have to change your model later, imagine you have to remigrate it and it handles all the drop tables for you.
Yeah, it would handle everything for you. You might, like, depending on different, if you add additional models and models depend on other things, you might have to input a default value for all the existing records if they exist in your database. You'll run into that, but yeah. All right. So validators. So for the age, if we wanted to create a validator to validate a user age. So I can do like Django validators. And I can look at the validators. And you can see here, writing validators. So we can write our own validations or validators. So it looks like def validate even if values modulus 2 does not equal 0, raise a validation error. And we can see an example of my model has an even field. And this is an integer field similar to our age. And it takes in a argument of validators equals, and then in like in a list, validate even, which is this method up here. So we can do the same thing with integers. We can create a validator like def validate age. that takes in an age. And we can say if age is less than 13, we can raise a validation error. And we're going to have to import. Let's import these. Yeah. So I'm going to import validation error, get text lazy. So validation error. And so get text lazy. I'm going to do it as text. So I'm going to say text. I'm going to say give an F string. You need to be 13 years of age or older. You currently are age years old. So I created this validation. It's literally just a method that takes in an age and will raise an error if the age is less than 13. And based off of this syntax, I just need to do validators equals the name of the validator. So instead of validate even, I'm going to validate the age. So let's go ahead and test this. So inside, I'm going to use the tests. So in here, I've got this test case. And what I'm going to do is import my user model. So I'm going to, from the models directory, import, or from models, import user. Now I'm going to create a app user test case that inherits from the test case model. So that's what is being, that's where I'm inheriting. App user test is inheriting from the test case. And I can do like Django tests, testing models or something. Writing and running tests. So you can kind of see here from models, import animal, and I'm running an animal test case. So I can either do setup, but essentially I just, similar to running unit tests, define test animal can speak self. So I can do the same thing. So I'm going to do def test -01 create. Before I do that, yeah, I guess def test 01. I'm just going to create a user. Takes in self. So I'm going to create a user instance using this user model. So I'm going to say like new user equals user. And then in here, I'm going to do first name equals Tom. Last name, email, age, account type. So last name, Preet, email, tom@email.com. Age, I'll do like 15. Account type is paid. And now I can say, all right, well, how do I test this then? So if I look down here, it's going to do assert equals. So this is just like getting items. See if it's down here. All right. So how to test Django models. Let's see. There we go. I'll just say that. Writing, running tests. Real Python is a good example. Nope. Django full clean. Here we go. So customizing model loading. I don't even know what any of that is. But I'm looking for this method called full clean. So when I want to validate an object or validate my models, there are 3 steps involved in validating a model. I can validate the model fields. So I can say clean the fields. So it's going to run all this and like clean the fields to make sure that they all work together. They all meet the requirements of the field. Validate the model as a whole by doing model.clean. Validate the field uniqueness, model.validate unique. Or I can do all these methods in a single method called full clean on the model or on the object. So you can see here, if I've got a article object, I can run full clean on it, and it's going to run through all that and check, essentially validate that this new user is in fact is like a valid user. So I can run full clean and accept. I can raise a validation error. So validation error as E. So I need to import validation error, just like I did up here. Get rid of that. And then I can just like print the E or validate self that assert true. So when it throws that validation error, it should say like new user dot age, something like that. Let's see, assert true. Testing Django. I have to look at that. Where's assert true? Testing true. Come on. Where is it? True Django. There's assert equal. And I just look at this. There we go. All right. So essentially, assert true. I think in E dot message dict, you don't have to worry about this testing because you won't be writing tests a lot. But I'm just going to go ahead and write these. All right. Did I run the migration script with this validation on here yet?
I don't think so.
All right, let me see, run this. Okay, so it looks like this passed. So creating the test database here, I ran one test. Good. Now, let's see. So I'm just gonna do Python manage.py. Make migrations again on the Twitter Django app. So yep, so I altered the age field on the user. And notice how another migration script got added, 0002. I altered the user age. So I can do run Python manage.py, migrate Twitter. And there it applied that user or update now. So that's one way I can do it. So I created a validator with this. But there's another way I can do this as well. Because the email field had a built-in email validator that Django already had created. Maybe Django validators. Maybe there's a list of validators that I can look at that Django might already has built in that has like a maximum age or something like that. So I've got like this regex validator, email validator, URL. I also, here we go. So I've got max value validator, min value validator. So maybe I wanted to use a min value validator. So I can literally just, instead of writing my own method, I can use the min value validator. Is less than the limit value. I can use the what is it? Min value validator and just enter 13 in there. And then I don't even need to write my own validation for that one. All right, I'm getting a squiggly line. Looks like I need to import the validator. So how to import validators.
It's from Django DB
From
dot
Django.
validators import min value.
Validators, import min value validator. So that's one way you can do it as well. So you can use that one or just the one that you've created manually. Validate age. Like so. Oh. How the hell did it do that? What is going on? All right. So you can use either or for the validators like that. The built-in one, or you can make your own one. For something that, but the weird thing about validators is you can't pass in like, hey, I want to like validate the age and the email address in like the same validator. The validator will only accept one argument, and that argument is whatever comes in this field. I can't pass the age into another validator. So that's just something you'll need to know. So, and if you need to do that, you're gonna have to come up with a workaround. But for something like account type, where I only want paid or free on there, I can create another validator. Validators equals like validate account type, and I can validate that account type to validate type, which takes in the account type that the user wants. And now I can say like valid account types equals free or paid. And I can say like if account type not in valid account types, that means there's someone else trying to type something in. So it's no longer like try to bypass the form. I can raise that validation error. You can only have a free or paid account type. And then I can also validate the account types by running a unit test. Whoop. Suitably enter a valid account type. So if I wanted to run the tests on that one. So 2 tests found. Oh, system checked identified some issues. Char fields must be defined as max length. Where am I doing that? Oh, so char field right here. I need to add a max length equals, I think I overwrote it 4 on accident. Like so. So max length and the validators. And there we go. Any questions?
Yeah, you got your the validators. It looks like it's taken in a list. So is that suggesting that you could string multiple validators
No.
for each? Okay.
I mean, I don't, you might be able to. We can try another one. Def validate test account type pass just for the I've never tried to do this. But I'm pretty sure it will work, but yeah, there shouldn't be a reason why you need to add multiple validators because everything should be just done in one method.
I was just thinking there might be a reason why it was formatted as a list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, some field types already have built-in validators in them, and that's what makes them a little bit different. You can create your own validators, or there's built-in validators that you can utilize, like the min value validator. But also remember this full clean method will execute clean anytime. So essentially, anytime you try to save something in the database, it's always going to automatically run this full clean method. So just keep that in mind. And you can override the full clean method by doing some other thing. So you can actually define your own def full clean, and then you can run methods in here and override. You can run the clean fields, clean, validate unique, as well as some other things if you want. Any questions on validators?
Yeah, Tom, if that,
Okay.
oh, sorry. I was gonna say, if that test fails, you'll just get that string in the console, right? In the test.
Yeah, let's actually see. Maybe I can. Um. So create user 3, age 12. Whoop. So the reason why this one passed, because it did throw that try exception. It came into here, full clean. There was an exception, and then this is what. That's why this test actually passed. So if I did something here, so validation error. Print. The test failed. Now, if I do this, should fail. Why did it pass? Oh, this test failed.
Oh, it puts it in the dot error syntax.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hold on a second. Twitter. There's a pi. Yeah, but essentially, it threw that validation error. And this is where like you can do that print E. Oh. You can see that age, ensure the value is greater than or equal to 13. I'm gonna stop